All right, so we'll just get started and yeah, we're at the 5 minute mark. All right, welcome everybody to Frank Analysis. I am your host Franco. I am pleased to be joined by a fantastic cast of people here with their own channels. I am joined by Dontel of Unapologetic. I'm joined by Coffee and Nuance, and I'm also joined by Marcus Cage. What's up, guys? Go ahead and introduce yourselves. Let's start with Unapologetic.
So my name is Dontel Hines. I'm host of Unapologetic on YouTube. Recently brought the channel over to Odyssey, and I've been in Left New Media for over 2 years now. I've started doing the show regularly January 1st, 2019, and it's been an interesting ride. A lot has changed since I started the show. Been talking about a lot of different interesting topics lately.
And we also have Coffee and Nuance. Go ahead, man.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name's Tom Coffee. My channel's called Coffee and Nuance. Basically, I make a video about something I'm interested in. That's it. And I'm so glad to be doing this. This is my first stream ever. So we'll see how it goes.
Hey, glad to have you on, man. And go ahead, Marcus. I think this is like your fifth or sixth time being on here, right?
Yeah, I think so. I always enjoy coming over and hanging out with you and your panel and getting to the chat. For those who aren't familiar with me, I'm Marcus Cage, other known as Young Morpheus. I got like 3 channels. Just look for Marcus Cage. It makes it easier. My channel, which I kind of is the one which started out everything, is what is called What We've Been Thinking with Marcus Cage. Now, it started off as What I've Been Thinking, but now that I have panelists, a regularly weekly panelists, I decided to add them in there, and then I still do a little short videos on there. But how I got acquainted with our good dear host here, Mr. Franco, is he caught a hold of one of my videos on the political matrix, and that channel I put a lot of work into, and for those who, there's no taboo issue in politics or in the world. If that's what you're into, then come over to that platform. It is not for the faint of heart. And then my newest project I'm working on now, it is discussing religion in a different way. I am a Hebrew Israelite, so I go into a lot of that. So that's what I have going on. Thanks for having me on again, Frank.
Yeah, so let's get started on the first topic here. So I'm going to pull it up for everybody to see here. So let me zoom in for everybody so they can see this. So this is an article that was on the Washington Post. It says a majority of the people arrested for a Capitol riot had a history of financial trouble. I mean, that should have been obvious, right? Why else would they have been protesting there if, like, they're not financially stable, the majority of them. Like, they're upset with the way that our country is right now. Like, they're feeling oppressed. If they had everything that they needed, they wouldn't be out there protesting, right? And then Ilhan Omar, she said, it's not economic anxiety. It's not economic anxiety. It's anxiety over losing status and power that's fueling right-wing extremism. There is a white supremacy radicalism in our society, and we can't afford to dismiss or normalize it. So the problem I see here is he's not looking at the root, right? Like, why do we see white supremacy in the first place? Isn't it because people are poor and then they don't have access to objective information? Our education system sucks. They're brainwashed from birth. They're raised in their society. They're taught lies throughout their whole life. So it's not looking at the root problem of how we can stop white supremacy from rising up. So I want to get your thoughts. Let's start with Dontel, man. What do you think?
So I think that was an interesting article, and it put some numbers to what a lot of us had kind of figured would have been behind some people being so radicalized by just the entire Trump movement since 2016. And I was listening to Ronnie Collick's podcast, Left Bitches, and they talked about how this is like it's it's a known fact that economic distress, economic devastation, that leads to people being more radicalized. And the example that they gave was back like the start of World War II. It, that that wouldn't have happened. The Nazi Party wouldn't have rose to power if it hadn't have been for the events leading up to that. The way that World War One ended, and how the German people basically had to pay all the cost of the war, and they were put into like some type of crazy debt that they would never pay off for the rest of their lives, and that led to a terrible economic situation in Germany. And that's not to excuse the radical actions, but that's what it leads to. It makes it more, people are more susceptible to the most fringe and radical theories. So with this Washington Post story, and it sheds light on how people, like I said, how they become so easily radicalized and follow a charlatan like Donald Trump. And I like how they did it, because it wasn't just like, oh, what's their economic status now? It went back to like after the 2008 crash, and they went through the people who arrested, their financial data, and if they like were foreclosed, if they lost their homes, if they lost their jobs because of the economic crisis, and then what that led to ever since then, them not trusting political institutions, them being joining these fringe groups online where they spread a bunch of conspiracy theories. And so for Ilhan Omar to just completely dismiss that, I think it's just a very bad move. And because it's important to realize that that's the result of serious like economic hardship, what it can do to regular people. And it really hasn't been a lot of data on it from what has happened in the 2008 crash, and that created it really gutted the economy for most of the working class and middle class. So there hasn't really been in-depth study into that, but this Washington Post article shed a little bit of light on it, and it shows that a lot of these people, they had, I think the amount of people who had to declare bankruptcy out of the people who were arrested was like twice as high as the national average, and things like that. So this is part of Trump's base. These are people who are diehard Trump supporters. And if that's what the terrible economic conditions before COVID led to, it led to 100,000 people basically lined up outside of the Capitol, and then a couple thousand of them to storm the Capitol. If that's what happened from the 2008 crash, we need to be paying attention, and we need to take note of that, because what's happening now is multiple times worse than that. It's the worst economic crisis in history. So if we don't address it, then it's inevitable that we would get more unrest, and it's going to get even worse than what we just seen with the riots in the Capitol.
Don't you think that this is taking away like responsibility from Congress? Like, oh no, it's not our fault. It's people. It's like these other working class people who are white supremacists and have this radical ideology. What do you think, Tom Coffey? What do you think?
Okay, so Unapologetic made a lot of good points, and I don't disagree with any of them. However, I want to call out, I just want to show you what the Washington Post did in this article. This is something that I see a lot of times. First, they will put out this article, and it will get copy-pasted by the entire media. So every media outlet has copied this story and has put out the same point that they've put out. But I'd like to just take a step back and look at it. I do think that the characterization of these people is probably, a lot of confirmation bias. You think that's what they are, and so you come up with something to show it. But let's just take a look at the numbers that they gave. And here's the trick that the Washington Post did. They said that there were about 240 people arrested they could only find public records on 125 of them. Okay, so about half, right? And then we're going to talk about foreclosures or bankruptcies. I'm sorry, bankruptcies. Well, in this country, all bankruptcies are public record. Okay, that's the way it is. Now, it is possible that you could have a sealed record. Those are very rare. So for the most part, all bankruptcies are public record. Well, if they could only find information on 125 of the 240 people, we can probably assume that the rest of the people that they couldn't find anything on didn't have a bankruptcy. Okay? And even if we use the numbers from the article, it says that by my calculation, is about 22 people out of the 125 had a bankruptcy, which rounds up to 18%. If we take those we take those same 22 people and we divide it by the 240 people that were arrested, it would be 9.1%, which is exactly the same as the U.S. population. There's no difference at all. There's zero difference. And so what I think happened here, this is my opinion, is that it's like, well, we couldn't, we need a new way to run down these supporters of Trump. We've run them down this way. We've run them down this way. Hey, author of this article, go out and find a different way to run them down. And so they manipulated this little statistic to show that they had double the bankruptcies. But when you look at their own numbers and you apply just a little bit of logic, it's the same as it is nationwide. There's no difference between the people arrested at the Capitol and the rest of the country. And when I looked out at the rest of the media that copy pasted this article, nobody seemed to question it. They all just bought the whole story. Now, I didn't go through and check the numbers for every single thing listed in the article. I just picked the first one that they listed, right, which was the bankruptcies, and I found out that it's the same. So I think that this is just a way to run them down. Now, does that mean that everything else that they said is wrong? No, of course not. And I agree with a lot of the conclusions that people are making about this, but to just manipulate the numbers to get the outcome that you want by excluding a big group of people, all the people that they couldn't find any public records of, but all public records, all bankruptcies are public records. So if they couldn't find a public record, they didn't have a bankruptcy. I mean, that's how it works. So I found just the premise of this article to be garbage. And additionally, I do agree that a lot of the people that were there were desperate, and that is what motivated them to be supporters of Trump and to go protest at the Capitol. And I think both those things can be true. We just don't need to prove it with some sketchy stats.
I think that's you made some good points there, and so I can't say exactly why it is that they didn't have the financial data for the other people who were arrested, but you do make a good point about the bankruptcies being public record. And so again, I'm not hanging my hat off of everything that the Washington Post says, but in terms of the topic in general of, did the economic conditions, was that part of what radicalized people and what brought them out there in the first place? And I strongly agree with that, because I don't think it's a coincidence that the same, within the months of the biggest protest movement, arguably in the history of this country, definitely since the civil rights movement happened, and then the riot happened, all of this within just months of 60 million people losing their jobs and unemployed, have no way of providing for their families. All of this unrest it's not isolated incidents. So you make I'm not gonna I can't refute your argument about the how much we should trust the Washington Post numbers, but I do think that it's the economic conditions is important context to add to the conversation about why the people were there in the first place. And to the just something you to the question you kind of asked Tom before was about does this give them, like Ilhan Omar's response, it's like a get out of jail free card for Congress because they haven't done anything, and the economic crisis that we're in, like if those people who all at the Capitol, if they were getting monthly payments from the government, $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month from the government, would they feel the need to go out and protest the government in such a like huge way just because Trump says they stole the election or whatever else he was saying? Like, they maybe believe, if they were at their homes and they were getting those checks, they probably would believe Trump, but would they have been so animated and so just fed up with the government that they would all take to the Capitol and hundreds of thousands of people would be out? I don't believe that. So I do think people like Ilhan Omar, they're trying to pawn off responsibility, because this unrest that's happening, not just with the riots at the Capitol, but with the protests, the Black Lives Matter protests over the last year, and just the rise in crime and stuff like that, that's because they aren't doing their job. And it's very convenient to say, like, just like a lot of them have tried to do for the entire time Trump was in office, was like, oh, there's nothing to see here. We did nothing wrong. It's not, don't blame us for any of it. It's just all of the bad things, Trump being elected, all his rabid supporters, is just because they're racist, and it's just because they're white supremacists. And don't look at us because we're doing everything fine here. It's just them.
Yeah, and the sad thing is like they're trying to keep us divided and be like, oh no, they're the problem, and then like people are gonna be arguing online saying, oh, this is why we need more censorship because there's all these crazy people out there that are going to riot. But Marcus, what are your thoughts? What do you think?
Well, my thoughts is I definitely agree with everything that Dontel and everything that Tom was saying, but I would like to probably frame it from a different context and look at it a little differently. Yes, we can focus on the bankruptcy numbers, but I feel like we got to look at why this is the conversation at all. Why is the conversation that the Trump supporters, all of this is because of racism. If you look at the storming of the Capitol, it wasn't about a race issue. What it was about is you have a bunch of people who don't trust the government, don't trust what we've been seeing. And if you look at on the Democratic side, we had all of this stuff that was going on through the primaries that was shaky. You have Trump who goes and calls that stuff out. So you have us on the left agreeing and seeing this. You have Trump calling it out, seeing it. You have his people seeing it. So the logic that they would feel the general election would be rigged also, I don't feel it's too crazy, compared to some of the other stuff that they believe. But I feel whenever you try to, oh, well, they're a racist or they're this, it's easy to throw that out because the history of the recent Republican Party has definitely been tied to racism. And I'm one of the first people who is always happy to call out a racist or point out the dog whistles. But this isn't a situation where it's about racism. Yes, there are racist Trump supporters. Yes, there are racist Republicans, but that's just something that they're putting out there so that when they start cracking down more and more and more on any Trumpers or QAnon or anybody on the right, they're going to have people who will be on the left who are going to agree with them. And that's what their whole message is, to demonize these people so they can start attacking them. And so if they get some of us to agree also, then when they turn it around and start launching those same attacks on us, then it takes all of our I guess defense, and or I don't want to say defense, but it takes away our narrative, because it's like, hey, you guys were supporting them, now you guys are complaining when it's happening to you. And so I feel like they're just setting this up. You can crush the Republicans, and then shortly after that, they'll be dealing with us. So, I mean, that's kind of the way I see it. I feel like Ilhan Omar, what she's doing is she's just putting out the same message, which, all of the Democrats are putting out across the board. It's almost just a united front. So anybody who they consider, a right-wing Democrat or a left-wing Democrat or whatever kind of Democrat, they're all on the same page pretty much on everything. It's just the rhetoric comes out a little different.
Yeah. It's something all of you touched on is white supremacy really our top priority right now to be worrying about? I mean, there's people that are losing their jobs, losing their healthcare that's tied to their jobs. We're in all these wars that we're paying with our taxpayer dollars, right? Like, we are all being oppressed at the same time, and the white supremacists make up what? Like, I haven't seen the statistics, but I mean, it's probably like less than 1%. It's probably like 0.05%. But
one thing I'll add is that, yes, the percentage of white supremacists are small, but the white supremacists that are the big problem that we need to worry about,
they're at the top.
They're at the top. Exactly. That's the problem we're having. Because how I see this is, we can slice and dice it multiple ways. Yes, you got racist right wingers, but do they really matter? The ones at the top who are racist, those are the ones that matter. I mean, so every little aspect, we could slice it to, okay, you have this side of it and that side of it. Yes, you have some racists over here, but is this what this whole movement is about? Is it about racism as a whole? No, that's silly. Now, Rush Limbaugh, if he was if he was leading that charge, then yes, I would say that. But it's Donald Trump. Donald Trump, all he's doing is he's just trying to play to the crowd, and he's feeling around to see what kind of reception he gets. And he just says certain things, and they take it to that extra level, because anybody who really thinks Trump is what led any of the right wing, it's bonkers, because they have been talking like this for 20 years. If you listen to especially AM radio, they have been talking like this a long time. All they've been doing is waiting for a figurehead who's going to talk just like them. It doesn't matter if they actually get anything done. They just want somebody that's going to talk like them. And because from the right and the left, neither side has really gotten anything that they've been asking for. If you can get the right lip service, you get happy, and you excuse a lot of things. That's the same thing which happened on the left with a lot of Bernie supporters. They're getting the rhetoric they want to hear, but are you going to actually get the tangible things?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom, and then I'll go to Dontel.
Okay. Well, why? The question is why is this even an issue with like the bankruptcies, and why is it framed that way? Well, it's framed that way because the Washington Post wants to put out further things to demonize some people. That's why. I think that they could easily make the case without doing that, and I just wish there would be reporting that we didn't have to read minds. I can't read minds. I don't know anyone that can, and so I really don't care for the attack of knowing what's in somebody's head or in their heart. I would rather just see what they do, and if they do good things, then I consider them good. And if they do things that we would consider racist or bigoted or whatever, then we can call that out for that. But we can't get in people's minds. And I think if we project onto people all of these things, it's just going to keep us divided, and we're not going to make the progress that we're trying to make.
And to the point that you made about is white supremacists the number one issue right now? And I think that's something that should be talked about, because of course nobody's saying that white supremacists are good and we should all welcome them with open arms. But priorities, like if you go talk to 100 people on the street, ask them what their biggest concerns are. Some type of white supremacist violence, right-wing extremist violence, it's not in their top concerns. They're probably concerned about how they're going to put food on the table. They're probably concerned about how they're going to keep the lights on. They're probably going to be concerned about whether or not they're going to get evicted. Or are they going to catch COVID? And if they catch COVID, how are they going to pay the medical bills? Like, there are real things. And then another part of it is, too, like, okay, white supremacy and racism, it's something that, as a society, we should deal with and we should get to the bottom of, because it's been a problem in this country and around the world for a very, very long time. But this whole, like, let's focus on it now because Trump's racist and we want to call Trump supporters racist, and we're going to act like this is the thing that everybody.
Can you guys hear him?
His audio cut out.
Oh, don't tell your audio cut out.
That, guys, you're not going to solve racism like that. And whatever other theories you have to solve racism, it's probably not going to go away in the near future. So, but what we do have control over, what is easily addressed, are economic issues. And that's where the focus of people in Congress should be, because no matter what law they pass, no matter what type of commissions they try to set up, they're not going to solve racism. But they can solve people their economic situation, and they can deal with that. So anything else other than that, focusing on anything other than that is a distraction and is just it's taking us in a direction that they can just continue to basically leave the public for dead and focus on everything and anything else that will attract eyeballs and act as a smokescreen for what the real problem is, which is the unprecedented, unforgivable failure of government during the worst emergency in U.S. history.
Yeah. So just as an example, I'm out here in Oregon, and today my congressman co-signed something, that they're going to put in to not allow any building or whatever to be named after Trump. And they put it in, the language is that nothing would be named after someone that's been impeached twice, right? And this is what he's concentrating on today, where we still have people in Oregon without power right now. There's huge shutdowns the past couple of days because we've had so much snow. But that's what he's concentrating on, Earl Blumenauer, my congressman, is let's make sure that we don't name anything in the future after Trump.
But Tom, I mean, look at what's going on with Pelosi. She's up there talking about a 9/11 style commission on the Capitol. You know why they're trying to do that? Because that gives them another thing to focus away from getting anything done. Also, it works in two ways, because CNN, MSNBC right now, their ratings are dead.
Yeah.
Now that Trump is gone, they don't have any ratings. So if you talk about Trump for think about it, the 9/11 commission took a year and a half. If they talk about Trump for at least another year, they're just doing it for ratings.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That acquittal, like the impeachment, what a waste of time. What a waste of time that these progressives that are supposed to be fighting for us, who said that they were going to fight for healthcare, they're focusing their energy on that. And I just want to bring up this tweet again by AOC. All right, so let me pull this up. So again, she was asked about why, like, what's the point if you know that it's going to fail? You know that impeachment is going to fail. What's the point of like pushing for this? And she said a few reasons. Sometimes it's to get members on the record so people can't make excuses later. Sometimes these votes create real political pressure that forces developments. Sometimes we vote for the historical record to let future generations know we did everything we could. So she did everything she could. And the other Justice Democrats, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush, the new ones, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they did everything they could to impeach Donald Trump and to focus on how, it's other working class people that are supporting this guy that are the problem. It's ignorance that's the problem. Instead of focusing on the real white supremacists, the modern day colonialists that are going into other countries, stealing natural resources, causing all this suffering, killing people with drones. They're not focusing on that white supremacy. Look at the time that they wasted. So I want to get your thoughts on that. Like, what are your thoughts on the acquittal and how they're still focusing on like, we can't risk having a Trump. He might run again in 2024 now that this impeachment failed. So vote for Kamala Harris. You guys think that they're going to keep talking about Donald Trump for in 2022 and 2023 to keep fear mongering people?
I do, and it's ridiculous. And like, one of the things that is so hard to really just to quantify when you're talking about the failures of government is the missed opportunity, the opportunity cost. Because anytime they do shit like this, it's not in a vacuum. It's not isolated. They are going to do this whole dog and pony show over the impeachment like they just did. Just like they did it the first time over the fucking Ukraine arms sales. They do this whole dog and pony show and get all this create a spectacle, get all the media attention. That's all everybody in the country is talking about, or in the elite circles are talking about. And all while they're doing this, the time they keep kicking the can down the road and we keep getting, because during a presidency, it is basically like like common knowledge, or like establishment wisdom that the most you're going to get done is in the first 100 days. And if they're doing all of this bullshit, every chance that they get, while again, the Democrats have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. They could be running the show. They could be doing whatever they want, passing whatever legislation that they want, passing Medicare for all, passing UBI, rent and mortgage cancellation. They can do any number of things to address real problems. But they're going to focus on Trump, set up a whole 9/11 commission. And by the way, there are already investigations going on about what happened, about the security, the lapse in security and stuff like that on the Capitol. So the whole this idea that we need a 9/11 style commission is such a waste of time. And they're not doing what they should be doing. And so what do you they think that, or they keep, and I honestly, I'm having a hard time believing that they even think that this is a grave threat to democracy, and if we don't do something about it now, then it's the end of democracy. I have a hard time even believing that, because what are you really afraid of? You think that, okay, if we don't do this 9/11 style commission, if we don't waste our time trying to impeach Trump, who's already out of office, if we don't do all these things, what's going to happen? You think that somebody else is going to find himself in a situation where just a couple days before they leave office,
Or your audio cut out, don't tell. Don't tell your audio.
Some made up hypothetical that may never come to pass, and you're going to focus all your time and energy on that. But what's really happening is people are getting kicked out on the streets right now. Mm-hmm. People haven't had food to eat. People have been food insecure for over a year. The education system in this country is falling apart. The schools are open here, schools are closed there. it's teachers are quitting. There aren't enough teachers to teach the kids. Like, there are real problems that are affecting people's lives and will permanently alter the course of people's lives right now. People die because they can't afford healthcare. That's happening right now. That's happening today. It's going to happen tomorrow, and it's going to happen the day after that. And so it is just so, it's such a great example of how out of touch they are, that they, even if they believe it, say that, take this in the most good faith way you could possibly, that they actually believe that they're protecting the country from some sort of threat. Like, they don't see that all the other things, all the other problems pose a bigger threat to people in this country than this made up hypothetical.
Right. So Marcus, Tom, please jump in.
Let's see. A couple of points that you guys made that I definitely wanted to bring up. Dantel brought up about that they're kind of kicking it down the road. Now, kicking it down the road would be what's going on if their intention was to get things done. Now, my hypothesis and my viewpoint is that their goal is not to get anything done. They're very confederate on not doing a damn thing for us. Now, if you look at this, to me, the parallel to Rome, the Roman Empire, this America completely reminds me of that, because for those who don't know what I'm talking about, the Roman Empire, what it did the whole time it was in power was conquer, steal, take this from this country. And they worried about all of their conquests everywhere else. Just like our government is worried about whatever Venezuela's doing. Let's go get in there and let's do this, let's get that, and let's go down to Bolivia and let's go steal all their nickel cambium. And let's go over to here and go steal oil from here. And let's go move in. Well, we ran out of this source of oil, but they have the deep crude that works with the ones we need. So we need to get into that country. They've been so focused on all of those things that they felt like everything domestic can kind of just float on autopilot. Now, the problem is, even in a plane, you can fly autopilot, for a good amount of time, but eventually you run out of fuel and you have to land. You got to do other things. You might have to maneuver from another plane, whatever comes up. And none of this is factoring into anything that they do. It's like, okay, yeah, you're whining. Okay, let's throw out, what's the minimum we can give them, which will shut them up? That's basically how our government has been running. And we have to, as a whole, start to look at them as that's what they're doing. It's not we just couldn't get this to work, and this is what we really want to do. Because Republican, Democrat, no matter who gets into power, if they really wanted to get their agenda passed, and you have all three, you have the presidency, you have the Senate, and you have the House, and in fact, on top of that, they have a lot of governorships that they can partner with. And so they have all of these things set up for them. The first thing you should do is kill the filibuster. The moment you kill the filibuster, it's all open and you can start passing all your agenda. And so you can stretch that, 100-day period out to, a good 2 years, and then get some things done and have something to run on, instead of, well, we got this one thing passed that it's not quite what you guys wanted, but we got some stuff, and the Republicans just stopped us from everything else,
Yeah, expect more of that.
So, Tom, let me, before you get in, let me just respond to something about the kicking the can down the road, because this is something I've talked about on my show a couple times. I don't think, and this is why I've been so outraged over the last year, this is not how leaders act if they were actually trying to help people. I don't think they're trying to help people. What I mean by they're kicking the can down the road, the example I usually give on the show is like how they handled the 2008 crash. So it was the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. And what did they do to help the American people? They did almost nothing. They passed TARP, and they passed these bailouts for the Wall Street and all these corporations that were going bankrupt and things like that. But they kept saying, "Oh, we just have to pass the bailouts for the corporations. We have to do that immediately, or else the entire economy is going to collapse. We have to do this real fast." So they got that out the door, and they kept saying, "Oh, yeah, we know 5 million families got kicked out of their homes, and we know all these people lost their jobs. We know all these people lost their retirement, and all those things." But so we'll get to that. We'll get to that. They kept saying that. Weeks went by, months went by, and then years went by. Obama's first term went by, and then they just act like, oh, the economy's recovered, everything's back to normal. So if don't come looking to us for help. Everything's back to normal. Everything's good. You see the jobs. Even the thing that they would point to say that the economy recovered was the job growth, and the jobs were just low wage jobs that didn't have any benefits or anything.
Yeah, he'll come back. Your audio went away. Don't tell your audio.
I agree with what Dontel was saying. I mean, I know what he
The worst economic
there
crisis
he
in
is.
history. Oh, it went out?
Yeah, you went up. It looked like you were making great points. You're going in.
It was so like they're trying to do the same thing with COVID that they did after the 2008 crash. They want to kick the can down the road and look, all the help is coming. Don't put too much pressure on us. We're in the kitchen. We're cooking something up for you guys. Trust us. And just keep waiting. And we're almost a year since it started, and all they gave us was one means tested $1,200 check. If you're lucky, millions of people didn't even get that. You got unemployment insurance if you qualified again. Millions didn't get that. And then they added another $600 check. That's all they did in a year. So, and then all they're talking about is, we're going to give you all the millions of people who didn't get anything over the last year, we're still not going to give you anything. And we might give another $1,400 check to the people who were qualified the first time. So it's like, what they're proposing is just bullshit. It is just enough to keep kicking the can down the road. And then after the virus is gone or it's under control, and then there's like some sense of normalcy, you don't have to wear a mask outside and things like that, then they're going to be like, oh, everything's fine now. So you guys still looking to us to give you UBI? You still looking to us to give you healthcare? Oh, just go get it yourself. Everything's back to normal. So that's what I mean. But I think they're kicking the can down the road. It would be too brazen for them to just write blank checks to corporations, $1 trillion checks for corporations, bail them out, richest people in the country, and then at the same time be like, oh, we're really not going to do anything for you. So they keep giving this false hope like they're working on something, and people, it keeps the masses under control. It keeps the train from going off the tracks, and people just going buck wild and mayhem being unleashed in the country. If they think that, if we could just hold on, we can keep it together for this month until the next month, then they're going to do something to help us. And then after a while, people are just going to get used to it, and they're going to be like, fuck it, we have to just get a job. We're going to have to get 2 jobs or whatever. And they're going to completely give the government a pass from actually having to do anything to help people in this emergency.
In many ways, it reminds me of when you had a job where, you were waiting tables or something like that, and you had to just stand around and pretend to work, but you always had to pretend to work, when the manager was walking by.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, I feel like that's what they're doing, is they're pretending to do stuff. I mean, it's been like a month, right? And they've all been pretending to work. What have they got us? I mean, it's been a month.
I saw a meme recently. It was like when your manager walks by and you're not really doing anything. And this shows like the Scooby-Doo crew. There's like looking for stuff. It's like, oh shit, like what's going on? But
that or some shit.
Yeah. Like they're looking for something like, oh dang, like what's going on? Or like you just like, if you're working in like retail, you just start like folding clothes like for no reason. But man, that's a good analogy. Yeah, they're just like trying to act like they're doing something, but really they're just trying to create more division among us by still perpetuating, what the mainstream media does, like all this sensationalism. Like they're the problem, like white supremacists are the problem, and Fox News is like, oh no, the immigrants are the problem and all that. Go ahead, Marcus.
I was gonna say it kind of remind me of those analogies. Kind of remind me of in the military. Guys will have watch late at night, and I guess women also. When I was mostly around men, so that's why I think men most. But anyway, um, they would fall asleep on a late watch, and whenever like somebody higher up in the chain of command walks up on them, they would finish with, "Oh, amen, thank you, Father." I didn't. Oh, Captain, I didn't realize you were there. They pretend like they were praying. So it's kind of like Congress is doing the same thing. Oh, I can tell he's over there actually sleeping, not doing a damn thing. And he's like, no, 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 no. I was praying the whole time. That's what I was doing.
And real quick before you move on, so like I've been waiting for somebody to look at the numbers. So I did it, and so the House, since COVID started, they've been on vacation for like 20 fucking weeks. I mean, I can't. There is no way you can justify that with everything that's going on in the country, and it's your job to fix all these problems, and you've been on vacation for 20 weeks. What are you doing?
Straight up moochers.
Yeah. Just getting taxpayer money to just sit around and do nothing, and then go on vacation for 20 weeks? That's outrageous. And like I said, they're clearly not trying to do anything, because that's not what it looks like if you're working around the clock and you're trying to get people health care, you're trying to get the checks out the door, you're trying to make sure people aren't getting evicted. You wouldn't be taking 20 weeks of vacation if you were doing any of those things.
Yeah, and then like there's no urgency for them for healthcare, because they have it. They have good quality healthcare. There's no urgency. That's why I say, like, we need to pressure these politicians. But the way I think that we should just take their healthcare away so that they can feel the urgency and just pass universal healthcare. What do you guys think?
I think that would be a great idea. And if they had any idea, because another thing like people don't talk about is like how out of touch Congress is. They're a bunch of 80-year-old, 70-year-old millionaires, and they just they have no idea what it's like for regular people. They have no idea to be like trying to scrape together cash, be like, oh, am I going to have enough for groceries? Am I going to have enough for rent or to pay my insurance or anything? They have no idea what that's like. Money it really isn't even a concern for them. Like, anything they want, they get it. So take away the healthcare, and I'm sure they would feel a lot more pressure to pass some type of single payer healthcare system.
Yeah. So we're gonna move on to the next topic, but before we do that, I do want to read some super rays. Cultist Damon, thank you very much, said one day Americans will accept socialism, but they will never accept the word. Upton Sinclair is the guy who said that quote, who's the author of the Jungle Book. Brent McKinney, thank you very much for the super ray. Guys, if I've been demonetized, so if you want to help and donate like a super chat, since I can't receive super chats, you can donate a super ray and I'll read your comment. I was finding like a lot of funny stuff in the chat though. People were saying that Tom looks like Pasta's cousin or something, his mountain cousin. I kind of see that. You do kind of look like Pasta.
He looks like Steve also, Steve Poikonen.
Oh my God, it's a fusion. You guys watch like
same.
DBZ?
I get it.
Huh? What happened?
Oh yeah, I didn't hear what Jim said.
Yo, Tom.
Sorry, Tom.
Oh, I just said we all look the same. I get
it. Well, I hear sometimes that I look like Anthony Mackie. So
you look like somebody said like, you look like this like one basketball player. You also kind of look like Will Smith.
That's funny. No, I've never heard that one before.
You kind of like lecture like Will Smith, like when you're like, oh nah, he's gonna hear from me and it ain't gonna be pretty. That sounds like something Will Smith would say. All right, so this next story is something that Dontel made a video about, and I thought it was really disgusting, and it needs to be exposed more because this leads to autoimmune diseases, and we're seeing a big uprise in that. So Let me share that for you guys. So this is from a CNN article. CNN, I mean, when they do good work, then, you know, I'll give them credit, but that's just the exception. It's not always the case that CNN does good work. Most of the time they're just repeating propaganda, but whenever they do good work like this, I sometimes question, it's like, why did they release, you know, something like this, something important like this time? But anyway, leading baby food manufacturers knowingly sold products with high levels of toxic metals. It says 4 leading baby food manufacturers knowingly sold baby food that contained high levels of toxic heavy metals, according to internal company documents included in a congressional investigation released Thursday. So I will show just like a little bit of those documents, but I will have them linked in the description when I cut this clip. But I do want to read this one part that I have highlighted here that says arsenic, lead, cadmium, and mercury are in the World Organization's top 10 chemicals of concern for infants and children. As natural elements, they are in the soil in which crops are grown, and they can't be avoided. Some crop fields and regions, however, contain more toxic levels than others, partly due to the overuse of metal-containing pesticides and ongoing industrial pollution. I'm looking at you, Monsanto. Internal testing done by Gerber, Beech Nut Nutrition Company, Nurture Inc., which sells Happy Baby products, and Hain Celestial Group. Those are the top 4 companies that it's being exposed here by CNN, which sells Earth's Best organic baby food, showed levels of heavy metals for above limits set for bottled water by the FDA and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the congressional investigators found. Baby food ingredients in certain products contain up to 91 times the inorganic arsenic level, up to 177 times the lead level, and up to 69 times the cadmium level, and up to 5 times the mercury level allowed in bottled water, the report said. Yet the company still approved those products for sale. Whether the baby food was organic or not did not matter. The subcommittees found levels of toxic metal were still high. CNN reached out to the 4 companies for reaction prior to the publication of the report, which none of them had yet seen. So none of this surprises me at all, as it shouldn't surprise any of you. This is par for the course, but like there's toxic metals. There's like there's levels of molecular compounds that are unnatural for us, that messes with our hormones, that are found in all these junk foods that are being sold. And the food manufacturing companies they lobby our politicians. They have commercials on mainstream media. So it's really rare for stuff like this to get exposed. So let's start with you, Dontel, since you had a video about this. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, there is no, especially if you've been following the news for a while, like, you know, there's no limit to what corporations will do and what the government will allow them to do. But this story, it's just like one of those things that shakes you. Because, by the way, those products, they're still on the shelves. Nobody has done anything to address this problem. And they've known about it. The FDA has known about it at least since 2019. So this is like one of those stories that it just makes you think, like, what the fuck are we even doing? What are we doing? Because everything in this, there's supposed to be a social contract. And I talked about this in the video I did yesterday about the blackouts in Texas. But there's supposed to be a social contract. And, you know, as citizens, as residents, people living in this country, it's our job to be productive members of society. It's our job to get an education. It's our job to pay taxes and whatever. That's our contribution. And in return, the government is supposed to provide services, and they're supposed to help people out when they need it. And they're supposed to, like, set the course for where how the society is running. And you know, if we break the social contract, if we don't pay our taxes, if we break a law, whatever, you go to jail, and that's how that's handled. But what are we supposed to do when the government has broken the social contract and they aren't living up to their end of the deal? Because if like something like this, the most basic thing about, okay, are we going to poison babies or are we not? And they're going to go on the side with, all right, let's poison the babies. And why are they doing this? It's because this is the society where we're going in as a country. It's aimless, and there are no goals. The only thing that we're working towards is how do we maximize profit for corporations, or how do, as individual citizens, how do you make the most amount of money that you could possibly make? And that's like the beginning and end to like all that we do as a country. So it's really frustrating because as far as we come as a species, human beings, and the technology that we have and our understanding of the world and the environment that we live in, with all of this, again, you would think, and we have endless money as a country, could do any amount of projects and solve any amount of problems that we really, if we put our minds to, we can solve. But they choose to like profit over everything. And you like, instead of as a country, we come together like, hey, I think we should have more doctors. Let's make a organized campaign to like get more kids to grow up and go to school and become a doctor. Or I think we should be funding environmental science, and we should be redoing our infrastructure or whatever. Like, those are goals to advance the society. Or with all the technology we have, all the information we have about food and what's healthy and how to produce healthy food that benefits people and it leads to a healthy society. We know how to do these things, but they choose not to do it because, again, the only driving force is how do we maximize profit for corporations. And it leads to things like this, where does it make any type of sense to have 5 times the amount of mercury allowed that's allowed in bottled water, to have that in baby food, or to have like 188 times the amount of lead that's allowed in bottled water to have in baby food? Does that make any amount of sense to anybody? When we know all the health effects, and we know that how it will permanently change the trajectory of these children's lives by having them be poisoned by these chemicals. We know that. So at no level does it make sense, but it is allowed to happen because that's what maximizes profit for the corporations. So I really think we need to reevaluate what we're doing as a country, because it has led us to this state, this failed state, where the government isn't doing the most basic functions. They can't keep the lights on. They can't control the pandemic. They can't provide healthcare to the citizens. They can't provide cash assistance during economic crisis. They won't do anything because profit above everything else. And it's led us to a failed state. And it's not something that we can just ignore or sweep under the rug or hope this problem solves itself. Like, we really as a country need to reevaluate what's happening in the direction that we're going in.
Yeah, man. Yeah, 100%. It's profit first, our safety and health second. Like, think about all the health problems those babies are now going to have. I'm going to go into comparing like how healthy people were in the 80s while doing the same activity and having the same diet compared to how people are now. But let's hear from Tom and then Marcus.
All right. So this is the way the system is set up, right? That's what corporations are supposed to do. They're supposed to increase shareholder value. That's what it is. Like, that's the beast. It's like the palm, the snake, right? Like, you can't be mad at a snake for biting you because it's a snake. That's what he does. And to expect anything differently from a corporation is just silly, because that's the way that corporations are set up. They're set up, maximize profit, increase shareholder value. That's the entire purpose of them. What we have, or what we need, right, are checks and balances. So you have this corporation that's doing something, making a product that they want to sell in exchange for money. We need a check and balance on that. And currently there's no check and balance on them putting out toxic baby food. I don't think that any of the levels that they sold were illegal, right? They were all within, what they did was wrong, but I don't think it was beyond the levels of what was acceptable currently under the FDA, right? So they're just doing what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to put out something to make as much money as possible. You know, who do we hold accountable for this? Well, obviously the company, what they're doing is wrong, but also our leaders are in government are not doing their part by making sure that the level of that somehow that this is acceptable for baby food is, I don't even have the words for it. Yeah.
It's
But
beyond
that's
disgraceful.
where the problem is.
Yeah. Go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, see, I was going to follow that up with, in actuality, our leaders are doing their part. I feel like most of us have always grown up looking at things from an aspect of the way that we would handle it, you know, that we would try to be somewhat fair and decent overall, and most of us would be. The problem is, what we fail to realize is majority of those at the top don't think the same way. I mean, we see it all over the place with all of their different, you know, all the different shows, you know. There used to be Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Cribs, flaunting their wealth all the time. And they're always chasing for more. I mean, you look at Beyonce and Jay-Z, they're still charging out the ass for their concerts, even though they're billionaires. When you get to that certain level, that greed, I guess, that takes over. And I don't know if it's just automatic or if those people are greedy and that's how they got there. And I don't know if it's chicken or the egg. But it's funny, we kind of talked about, you know, how I was saying the white supremacy angle, the politics stuff, the way they're looking at that is all wrong. We literally live in a white supremacist world. That's what we have to focus on. And I'm not saying that to attack every single white person. I'm talking about the people who run things. And if we go back to what I would say 1300s, 1400s, from then on, if you look at, you know, the migrations and all the wars and how Europe developed into nations and powers, and then what they did while they were in power and what they continue to do today. It's just a continuation. It's just a little bit more slick. You know, when we would always talk about, you know, Jim Crow laws, they would say, you know, now we have Jim Crow, we have James Crow, Esquire. You know, it's just more, it's more under the surface. It's more sneaky. It's more organized. In a way, it's more civilized because they do it with a smile on their face. They do it without actually killing you or harming you physically, but they break you down by putting you into a condition where most of us all we can do is work, home, try to relax a little bit. And those like, you know, us, we're kind of obsessed with finding the truth and fighting against these people and holding them accountable. And so it's a small lane of people who are really seeing what's going on. And more of us need to understand what's going on. We've had the people at the top, they haven't went anywhere. These are the same people. So if you can't figure out who they are right now, you can just look back a couple hundred years. It's the same damn people. They're related to the same people. Their bloodlines are the same people. And then we sit there and we all talk about the 1%, and all the corporations. We know who these corporations are. We know who these people are. And that's when you can actually start to do something. When you can start putting pressure on individuals, then you can get somewhere. Onto, what about the baby food? I mean, it reminds me of what was going on with Nestle in Africa
Yeah.
and in India. I mean, all of these major companies, Pfizer, all the stuff that's went on with them. I mean, company after company, and let's not even get into Monsanto. you know, I mean, this is what this nation has been set up to do. And if you're rotten at the top, it breeds rotten all the way down. And so some people are put into situations where they're like, hey, I got to screw this person over to make a buck, but hey, that's the only way I can make a buck. But if you're in a society that's set up that way, that's what you're going to get. If it's corrupt at the top, it's going to be corrupt all the way through.
Yeah. Look, think about how many lives these companies and these people at the top have ruined. I have something personal against Monsanto, but that's a story for another day.
So do I. So do
yeah.
I. We'll start talking about Puerto Rico.
Yeah. So the amount of harmful substances that are in our food, either because it adds flavor, it has addictive properties, which they do that with a lot of potato chips like Cheetos, Doritos, or preservatives, or because they are there as a result of contamination, because again, Monsanto, it's linked to the exponential rise in autoimmune diseases. So if you think that this hasn't already directly affected you, you have to think again. A lot of you probably have an autoimmune disease or know someone with an autoimmune disease like lupus, hypothyroidism, type 1 diabetes, or you have allergies to gluten, dairy, soy. That is a result of overconsumption of substances that our bodies are not naturally used to. And that causes our immune systems to attack these unnatural particles because they recognize them as intruders. And then when they accumulate in like certain parts of our body, they start attacking our own cells. And then that eventually, if it keeps happening for years, it can lead to autoimmune diseases. Also, these autoimmune disease causing compounds affect your hormones, and then that can affect your mental health and your ability to lose weight. So I do want to show you guys another article here that I found really interesting.
Can I add something real quick?
Yeah.
And this is just something that I found out recently. There's actual laws in certain states how much rat feces are allowed to be in your food.
Yeah, that's how it is. The rat feces, like level of like cockroach essence in the foods, it's not regulated at all. And we're not even allowed to go inside of factory farms because they don't want us to see like the way that they're treating the animals, and also they don't want us to see like what else they're putting in our food. So those things, those substances affects our hormones. So here's an article that was published in The Atlantic back in 2015. It says why it was easier to be skinny in the 1980s. And pretty much it was saying like they studied people like how their activity levels were in the 80s, what they were eating, and then compared that to people having the same activity level and same diet. And people that are alive today, it's much harder for them to lose weight. And the people in the 80s were skinnier, but they have like the same activity level. They are eating the same thing. So what's the difference? The difference is that in the diet that they have now, they're adding all these harmful substances or levels of substances that are unnatural for our bodies to consume. And like I was saying, it affects your hormones, and then it affects your ability to lose weight. And then that eventually leads to problems with your heart. And then you're tied to all these pharmaceuticals. So it's set up like this by design to keep us powerless. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it needs to be exposed more. I think in the primaries, nobody was talking about this except for Marianne Williamson. She was the only one that said, that talked about the chemical industry and talked about the food industry. So Dontel, go ahead and share your thoughts, man. What do you think?
I think it's you have a lot of knowledge on this, and I think that the information is out there. Like, if anybody wants to learn about what's going on in the food and how like dangerous it is to us and the real negative effects it has on our health, the information is out there. And so, like, people have talked about basically the United States is just this big death cult, and we are just at every like we know these things are harmful. We know these things aren't going to lead to any good, but everybody just kind of like shrug their shoulders and like, oh, this is the way it is, and we're not gonna like do anything to change it. So it's like, so we're all just gonna keep doing the shit that's killing us until we're all dead. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. And like, it kind of ties into what I was talking about earlier about what is like, what are the goals here? What are we trying to do as a society? Like, what problems are we trying to fix? Like, how are we trying to improve the way we live? Like, no, like in circles of power in DC, like this isn't even part of the conversation. There is no broader strategy about like how we're going to have provide sustainable and healthy food to people in this country. Like, that isn't part of the discussion at all. And it really is like, it's fucked up. And like how Tom was saying earlier about how, you know, corporations, it's their job to maximize profit. So they're going to do all this shit. They're going to put all the chemicals in there. They're going to put the additives that make the food more addictive. They're going to put all types of things that are harmful, but help them sell the product. They're going to do that because they're going to do anything that they can legally and illegally get away with to maximize profit. So that's the whole role of government, is to help people when they need it and to protect the citizens. So this corporate capture of government in every single way, every single sector of our lives, it is so detrimental. And it is like, there is no good that's coming out of this. It's not like it's going to like magically there's going to be some focus on how do like we provide healthy, sustainable food. Like, nobody is ever going to do that. The corporations are never going to do that. And since they bought the government's never going to do that. So it's like nobody, like, it's a real problem. And anybody, really, I think everybody in this country at some level knows like what's going on with the food. Like, this is not healthy. This is not sustainable. But there is no urgency to actually deal with the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I don't know. Stop eating processed food. You know, that's all I can say. You know, the only processed food I ever have now is booze. Right. That's pretty, outside of that, everything I get is Whole Foods. Right. So,
I do think, and there's like this huge disparity about like getting healthy foods to begin with. So, like I said, a lot of people know like a lot of the food in the country is fucked up and it's not good for you. But there's a lot of people who can't even afford to do anything different. So, like, I do think there should be more government involvement, not necessarily like, oh, telling you what you should eat, but provide like making it so that they are able to choose healthy foods if they want to choose healthy foods. But like right now, like a lot of poor people, they just don't have any options. So, I mean, maybe there should be like government programs to provide like meats and vegetables that are not processed and things like that to people. But just a quick thing off the top of my head that can help with things like that, can help people choose healthy food sources, is monthly checks. a lot of people, if they were getting $2,000 a month, they could probably use some of their money to buy healthier food instead of processed foods or whatever that they can eat at McDonald's or whatever like that. Like I think that this definitely should be a broader conversation about how we provide healthy food to people in this country.
Yeah, Marcus, what are some solutions that you have?
Well,
One sec.
I feel like another way that they're kind of hitting us, which we don't look at, and I don't want people to think that I disagree with any of the points that the gentleman made before me. The one change that I noticed that also occurred over this period of time is just the way life and everything in general became, because we started to come into more of a sedentary lifestyle. There was more sitting behind a computer screen. More of your learning in schools got switched to computers. Even now, today, a lot of schools don't do recess anymore. Um, and so, and then you look throughout the communities, how many, with all these budget cuts. Now, earlier, I would have just assumed, well, it's just, they're just being stingy with the money and cutting, programs to the community. Now I wonder if maybe they didn't want to shut down some of those parks and stuff. So some of those people could keep eating terrible foods and not even be able to actually work out to help burn it off. And so what I would advise, and it's kind of tough because any way you go with it, they kind of have you. It's kind of a catch-22. If you do it this way, you're going to get nailed this way, and if you go this way, you're going to get nailed the other way. Well, what I would say is try to limit certain things. If, say, for instance, if you want to go, vegan, that's one way that I feel can help. Or if you are going to continue to eat red meats and different things like that, put yourself on, I guess, some kind of a schedule or a limit. So you only eat red meat a certain amount of times, per week or per month. Things like that can help, counteract some of that. I also say, myself included, a lot of Americans were terrible about drinking water. We need to drink a lot more water. If we drink more water, it would help flush out a lot of these toxins which are going in our system, and our immune system could start actually helping us out. Another thing, load up on as much zinc, vitamin C, just try to get it from fruits, vegetables, preferably than going to the vitamins. But, if you try to do those things, it'll kind of help our immune systems. And our bodies are a machine that can do a lot for us that we don't often think about it that way. So, I say some of the solutions can be, extremely simple and not cost us a lot of money and not take a whole lot of alterations to our daily lifestyle.
Yeah, I did mention earlier that there's a lot of you on here who are watching who probably have an autoimmune disease or know people who have an autoimmune disease. There's some of you that probably are sensitive to certain foods, like if you're sensitive to dairy, like if you're sensitive to gluten. So there is a book called the Immune System Recovery Plan by Susan Bloom, who's MD and MPH. I recommend for you guys to check out. The least that it will do is at least inform you guys. But it explains what autoimmune diseases are, why they aren't easily detected at the doctors, why most doctors don't know how to treat them. They don't and one of the reasons is because they don't keep up with the scientific literature or are too traditional with their practices and are more comfortable prescribing people drugs to patients, and then that leads to people just coming back for the drugs. How you can treat and prevent some autoimmune diseases by changing your diet. And there are plenty of primary scientific sources that are cited in the book. So again, it's called the Immune System Recovery Plan by Susan Bloom. And like I said, the least it'll do is at least inform you about how autoimmune diseases work, how you can detoxify yourself, is something that Marcus mentioned, and how you can treat, like it's specific to certain types of autoimmune diseases. Like there's chapters based on like a condition that's more specific to you. But yeah, man, like it's gonna keep going up. As long as these companies are gonna keep adulterating their food with all these harmful compounds to reduce costs so that they can make more profit, we're gonna see more autoimmune diseases, and more of us need to be aware.
I forgot one more.
Yeah. Go ahead and give your final thoughts, guys.
Yeah, one more thought.
Sorry, Marcus. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, also, if you're able to, try to go to, I can't remember what they're called, but a dietitian. If you can get in with a dietitian, they can even do some blood work, and they can read it in different ways where your primary care provider might not be able or might not decide to go into. And so they might tell you, hey, well, your body has XYZ chemicals. And so you react, a certain way to, like Franco was saying, dairy or fish or whatever it might be. And so that can help guide you also.
I just wanted to touch on one thing. I just saw someone in the chat said something about vitamin D. And this is something that I learned. I made a video about this last summer with vitamin D. And I didn't know this. I went my entire life and I didn't know this. But turns out that a lot of Black people can't even process vitamin D from the sun. Like, it doesn't even work. And as a result, 40% of Black adults in America are vitamin D deficient, and that's double what the rest of the country is. And this is something that's really cheap, right? You can even buy it at the dollar store, but I wouldn't. I'd get something at Costco or, a little better quality. But it's a really important thing to do as far as taking care of yourself. It's something that you can solve really cheap. And I don't see anyone out there at all talking about that. One of the things that we want, I think, is, I'd like everybody to have health care, right? And perhaps it might be a little bit cheaper if we all got a little bit healthier.
Yeah.
Right. If we could all do something. As much as I despise Kamala, I've got a suggestion for her that she could do something. If she would do a once a week fitness class and get all of her fans to join her, to decide to get in shape. Oh, we're going to do, Zumba on the Capitol stairs or on the White House lawn or something like that once a week. I bet she could get 100,000 people exercising every week. I'd be in favor of that. I think there's so much that we can do to better our own health, but also if we share that with the people around us, they can better themselves as well. And we're going to get closer to where we want to be.
Yeah. And
so I'm glad you brought up like the healthcare, because that's the point I was trying to make. Like, one of the very important reasons why it is a must that we get single payer healthcare in this country is because this is a country full of poisoned people. And we were talking about the poisoning in the food, the water contamination crisis in this country. People talk about Flint, Michigan, but there are reports that 3,000 communities across the country have like twice as much lead in their water as Flint, Michigan. So this is a country, because of the neglect of the government and the profit motives of corporations, this is a country full of poisoned people. And I think you are more likely to be poisoned in one way or another, whether it's from water contamination or air pollution.
Oh no, the audio. Don't tell. Come back, please. Your audio went away.
So
there we go.
This it's incredibly important that we have healthcare, because it should be considered a basic human right. Mm-hmm. But with how bad like our health has been treated in this country, you are going to have, through no fault of your own, you're going to develop health conditions and probably chronic conditions that will affect you for the rest of your life. And again, it's through no fault of your own. So that's an important part of it's an important argument to make as to why we should have single payer in this country.
Yeah. Yeah, like that just makes it a lot cheaper too. Like if we just become healthier ourselves. There is a link also with vitamin D and your mental health. Like if you take vitamin D every day, it's like 2,000 IOU. I can't remember the measurements, like what the initials are for the measurements. But if you take it like, what is it?
IU, international unit.
Yeah. If you take like 2,000 IU every day, that improves your mental health. Like there are studies that show that like it can help with your depression, but the mainstream media and all these all these corporations, like the food industry, they don't want you to know that. Like the pharmaceutical industry, they don't want you to know that. That's just the way the system is set up to try to keep us dependent on them. But yeah, I think this is a conversation that more people need to have, and I'm glad at least that CNN article, for how horrible the mainstream media is, at least they got something like this out to get us talking about how they're poisoning us and poisoning us slowly.
And one thing one point I want to make about the CNN article before I give them too much credit. It was, they published it, but I think it was a story that had to come out anyway because the report was public. So I mean, it would have been a scandal if the major news outlets didn't at least do one article on it. And the way that they did it was clear that they were, they wanted to get it out because they kind of felt obligated to, but they didn't try to maximize the attention on that story. Because but the way they did it was, like in politics, they call it a news dump. And like at the end of the week, like on a Thursday night or Friday night or something before the weekend, you put out a scandalous story, but people aren't going to be paying attention because it's the weekend or whatever. And they did it the Super Bowl weekend, and then Donald Trump's impeachment was like the next.
Yeah, he'll come back.
Of being poisoned. So if there was any story to be talking about around the clock, wall to wall, it would be something like this. So I'll give them a shred of credit because they at least published something, but it wasn't like, they're trying to like ring the alarms on this.
Yeah, 100%. I'm never going to give the mainstream media too much credit for anything. But they just had to.
I used to watch them at like 3 a.m. on Saturday nights because that's when they would run the Chiron for all of their mistakes.
Damn. Like it's innumerable at this point, the amount of mistakes that they've made. And now they're praising Joe Biden as if like what we accomplished world peace now that we have Trump out of the picture. Like they're acting like, oh, we got this bad guy out, and they treat it like, oh, it's like a movie now. Like we defeated the bad guy in the movie, and now we have a happy ending. But
while the country's still going to shit.
Yeah. So
this is the Wizard of Oz for them.
We're not seeing anything that fundamentally changed, right? Like, was Biden even the lesser evil? Is there anything that's significantly different between the two? I don't see anything that's significantly different. And what we're about to get into right now, with how Joe Biden is going to continue to pursue extradition on Julian Assange, press freedom is still in danger, and we have to keep talking about Julian Assange. Spread the word as much as you can. Talk about Julian Assange and what's happening. It affects all of us. The censorship that's happening right now is affecting all of us. So real quick, I'm gonna pull up this next story. We're going to move on to the next topic here. So this was published on Axios. So the Biden administration signals it will continue effort to prosecute Julian Assange. The Biden administration has indicated it will continue to press for the extradition of Julian Assange from the United Kingdom, and prosecute the WikiLeaks founder in the United States, according to the New York Times. Driving the news, the Justice Department filed a brief on Thursday asking a British court to overturn a ruling that blocked Assange's extradition to U.S. as human rights and civil liberties groups urged acting Attorney General Monty Wilkinson to abandon the prosecution. Context: a British court judge blocked Assange's extradition in January because of the high risk of suicide in U.S. custody. Assange faces up to 175 years in prison if he is sent to the U.S. and found guilty of all 18 counts in the indictment filed against him. Why it matters. Human rights and civil liberties groups argued to Wilkinson that the case the Trump administration brought against Assange could establish precedent that would threaten press freedom. The case has raised significant questions about First Amendment prosecutions for publishers of classified information. Assange says he was acting as a journalist when he published leaked documents on U.S. actions in Iraq and Afghanistan. The U.S. government has argued he should not be protected under press freedom, saying in court that his actions went beyond the work of journalism. No, they did not. What they're saying, journalists have no constitutional right to break into a government office or hack into a government computer or bribe a government employee to get information. President Biden said written statement to the Times in 2019. There was no bribery of any government employee. So Biden is talking out of his ass. We should be hesitant to prosecute a journalist who has done nothing more than receive a publish confidential information and has not otherwise broken the law. What are your hopes on Assange, Tom? What do you make of this information?
It's interesting with Assange, and if we want to talk about just the coverage of Assange, this is a little anecdote. And this happened even before I started my YouTube channel. On Facebook, I would post things and there's, 30, 40 people that will like every single post I do, no matter what I do. So, here's a picture of my dog. Here's, 60 likes or something. The entire time I've had Facebook, and I haven't used it in the last, year or two. The only time I've received 0 likes is 2 things that I posted about Assange. And I am convinced that those posts were hidden from everyone because my mom didn't even like it, and she likes everything I post everywhere. So it seems really clear to me that the entire media, unfortunately, is against Assange and any promotion of his freedom. And that just seems to be antithetical to what the press is supposed to be. In many ways, I feel like it is I don't like to divide people on like one issue. Like if someone disagrees with me on one issue, that shouldn't be a thing. But Assange really is that with me. When I see politicians, especially politicians that pretend to be on the left or the far left, and they are silent about this issue, it really tells me that they're not on my team.
Yeah. So now, it's none of them except for like Thomas Massey and Matt Gaetz, I think, are the only ones that have spoken out about Assange. And then the biggest leaders in the progressive movement don't even acknowledge Assange's existence. Like where the fuck is AOC and like all these other progressives who are supposed to be like champions for us? Where are they? Like they're not standing up for this guy who exposed war crimes, right? So go ahead, Dontel. What do you think about all this?
So all right, to the point you just made about like where are they? Like, so you can't. This is why I don't understand people who are still giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like, this is one of those things where it's open and shut. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
It's not open for interpretation. There's no both sides to it. He published documents that exposed war crimes, us doing genocide, aimlessly murdering civilians and covering it up. That's what he showed. And because of that, the national security apparatus, they want his head. So did they come up with this bullshit prosecution, and they're gonna go after him and say it's not because he was doing journalism, it's because reason this, and it was something we're gonna claim he hacked into a government computer or whatever it is. Like they're clearly coming up with whatever rationalization that they could come up with to prosecute somebody who embarrassed the national security state. And the fact that these elected progressives are quiet on it, it's not that they don't know what's going on. It's not like they don't get the threat that this poses to investigative journalists around the world or the anti-war movement. They get these things, but they've made the calculation. It's better for my career. Things will go a lot smoother for me in the Democratic Party if I just don't say anything about Julian Assange. While our government is torturing him, while our government is trying to extradite him to lock him up in prison for the rest of his life if they don't just outright try to assassinate him, while our government is doing all of this, they see it, they know how serious this is, and they know how bullshit any of the claims that they're trying to make against him are, but they still won't say a word about it. He's been in prison for since 2019, I believe it was. And like you telling me during that whole time, they just been so busy that they just couldn't find any time to talk about Julian Assange. It's crazy. It's crazy. And Bernie Sanders, it's even worse for him because Julian Assange, even though this is not what he's being prosecuted for, but Julian Assange, he stuck his neck out there, and he published those WikiLeaks showing the DNC emails and the emails from the Hillary Clinton campaign that show that they rigged the primary in broad daylight in 2016 so that they can cheat Bernie Sanders, so that they could cheat the left for their preferred establishment favorite candidate.
Your audio went out. He'll come back in a second.
A 2016 primary, what we thought would happen in the 2016 primary, it wouldn't have been confirmed had it not been for WikiLeaks publishing those documents. And for Bernie Sanders, the person who was cheated, the person whose supporters and volunteers were robbed during that primary, for that same person to see Julian Assange be prosecuted and persecuted in the way that he has been for doing journalism, and you don't even say a fucking word about it, you have no integrity. You are just spineless, and you just, whatever the Democratic Party says, you're gonna go along with. And it's such a like this whole mythology about Bernie Sanders being an upstanding guy with a man of principle and morals and things like that. That is all bullshit. And his silence on Julian Assange it personifies that. And you can't. And another thing, you can't tell me you're an anti-interventionist. You can't tell me you're against all of our illegal military interventions that we're doing all around the world, the genocide for profit we're doing all. You can't tell me you're against that but then when somebody who has made the biggest advancements towards moving us to exposing these wars for what they really are, to try to get the public outraged enough so that they do something to stop these wars. When that person is being prosecuted for that very act of exposing empire. You can't tell me you're an anti-interventionist and you're quiet and you're going to sit idly by while empire drops the hammer on him for exposing war crimes, for doing the anti-war movement that you claim to be a part of a gigantic favor and giving us these documents that really show what we're doing around the world. You can't keep telling me you're an anti-interventionist and you're going to be silent on Julian Assange.
But don't tell.
And then
I was gonna say, didn't you know that Bernie and AOC are just playing like 4D chess, and that Bernie is silent because AOC is gonna be president in 2036, and then in 2036, that's when she'll stand up for Assange. But right now, we just have to put through, like, wait for Kamala to be president for like 10 years, and then we'll get Assange freed in 2036. That's the fucking logic that these people who support Bernie and AOC use.
Yeah, like I remember Tim Black was saying that all the time during the primary. He's like, "Oh, you expect Bernie to stick his neck out there for Julian Assange?
Yeah,
this issue that nobody cares about." But no, he just has to get through this primary, and then when he's president, then he's gonna come to the defense of Julian Assange. Well, he lost the primary, and Julian Assange is still being prosecuted, and Bernie still hasn't said a goddamn word about it.
All right, let's bring Marcus Cage in here. You see, are you buying this 4D chess, or is it 5D? I don't remember. 6D chess? What are they playing?
Depending on whose team they're on.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you know what? That's right. I forgot. We're on Rock Band. Let's just go on ahead and call. And you're not monetized anyway. So
yeah.
Let's just go right on out there and say what I really think. They're complete controlled opposition. Point blank, 100%. Period. Controlled opposition. Now, maybe at some point, Bernie might have been some of those things, which I believe he was. But whether by hook or by crook, they found a way to get him. And so whether he did something, he had his own, what was it, Chippequata, which Kennedy had, whether he had some kind of situation like that, which they're hanging over his head, whether they gave him an offer he just couldn't refuse, I don't know. But I believe he got that. I believe AOC got that. And all the whole new crop of Dems are all the same way. That's that big old club that we're not in. But this is how I look at it. We got to look at why these people, even though it's switched to a new administration, people think, well, what's President Biden? Well, he should have, maybe he's going to have an open-minded viewpoint or change. We got to keep in mind, the Obama administration wanted him too. They were upset about other things which he was leaking about war crimes earlier, before it got into the election. And so how I see it is, we have the State Department, which is pissed at him. You have the Pentagon pissed at him. You have NSA pissed at him. You have the Clintons pissed at him. You have Obama pissed at him. And we got to keep in mind, that sounds so weird. President Joe Biden was also in that administration, which was part of all those things also. And then he was also, I believe strongly that he was probably going to end up being her vice president. If some other things didn't happen earlier. And if you go back to some of the stuff that was going on with Biden's sons, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But and this goes way before all this Ukraine stuff that we're talking about now. His family is a hot mess, just like the Trumps are a hot mess. But to me, this is simple. You got somebody who was embarrassed on the world stage, who holds hardcore grudges. And if you become that person's enemy, and I'm talking about Hillary Clinton, you're an enemy for life. And I feel like Obama didn't like that they put a little blemishes on his, storybook, legacy media spin of his presidency. And then, of course, you put all of that together with the ability to do it with a media that's going to be completely favorable. To me, this is basically, I wrote down a little term. I call it, this will be a high-tech Gaddafi. I mean, I hate to be negative. I mean, I hate to see anybody get railroaded unfairly, but looking at the powers that be and their motivations, one way or another, this man is about to get railroaded.
Yeah. Yeah. Tom, you want to jump in?
No, I agree.
And so like one of the most frustrating things about this is like you're watching like this happen, like it's a slow motion train wreck, because we keep talking about Julian Assange, keep posting videos about it. Misty and all those people at Action for Assange do the vigils and all the protests and things like that. And it seems like
He'll be back.
to the US, it's like the whole case on its face. If anybody's being serious, it's clear that more than anything, even if they think he broke a law, it's really that they're trying to get back at him for embarrassing the national security state. And this whole thing is a farce. And everybody keep going along and pretending like these are serious court proceedings and things like that. Like, no. And if they were actually concerned about going after people breaking the law, if they were actually concerned about justice, and they aren't making exceptions for anybody, and they think Julian Assange broke a law, so we have to go after Julian Assange, and he didn't break any laws, he did journalism. But even if they think he did break a law, you think what Julian Assange did was worse than all those people who were caught doing murder and covering it up all over Iraq and Afghanistan? You think what Julian Assange did, he's top priority. And before they prosecute any of those people, before they prosecute the people who in the collateral murder video, who were in the attack helicopter and murdered innocent civilians on the ground, children, Reuters journalists, the first responders who came to try to take the injured people to the hospital, and laughed about it the whole way, you think that what Julian Assange did merits prosecution above them? Because it exposes this whole thing as a sham that it is. Because those people did murder on camera. Did any of them get prosecuted? No, they didn't. But the person who published that and made that public, oh, what a coincidence! That's the person who's gets all the ire and the full force of the government going after him. So it's like no matter what they do, from the dragging him out of the embassy, from when they did that, I'm like, oh, so there's no line that they won't cross to get Julian Assange at this point. And it's just it feels like, and it's not me saying, all right, everybody just give up, go home, whatever happens, happen. It just feels like no matter what we do, they're coming for his head, and it's gonna, like, they want to send a message, and nothing that anybody does is gonna stop them from doing it.
Yeah, I just
and can I add something onto that? I don't want any of our friends and colleagues out there, you know, who are putting out videos and passionately and trying to fight and at least be some kind of a defense for him out here, because our politicians obviously don't give a damn. That's the reason why I feel like no politicians are saying anything. If it's just us, it's easy for them to ignore us, and you know, we become a blip that you don't hear about. But because some of the charges are, dispersing, confidential information. Well, how many reporters in America, most of their stories come from confidential sources releasing confidential information. And as long as they don't divulge the name, they kind of let it go or something. I mean, but this is done all the time with the ABC, CBS, you know, Washington Post, all of these major publications. And so what that means is these people who are being quiet in the mainstream, they don't realize it, but this is my thinking on it. Eventually, they're going to come for them also, because one of them are going to decide, hey, I saw this one, whatever story happened. Say it's a protest going on, and a cop kicks some kid, and their head cracks, on the pavement. And they talk about it, and they're passionate about it, and they keep going on and on. And that video gets deleted or something, and then they decide to do follow-up videos. How long before they get in trouble for somebody telling them about the fact that it was deleted? I mean, it's a slippery slope, and I mean, I don't want anybody out there who's fighting for Assange to feel like I'm trying to crap on anything, that they're doing. I just am a little bit more pessimistic and look at that when this government decides it wants to do something, it's not much any of us can really do to stop it.
Yeah. And real quick, I know you want to move on, Franco, but the point about the politicians not doing anything. Can you imagine, and I talked about this last video I did about Julian Assange. Like, we're doing all this and we're trying to get all this grassroots energy and into trying to get Julian Assange free. But and this makes it even more excusable, the silence from these elected progressives. If Bernie, AOC, Ilhan Omar, all the most popular politicians in the country, AOC alone has 10 million Twitter followers. If they put a public pressure campaign to get Joe Biden to drop these charges, after the judge in the UK already ruled that against the extradition request, if they put all this pressure and put the spotlight on not only what this case is about, but the fact that they already lost it in the original extradition request, if they put all this public pressure on Joe Biden and shame the shit out of him for trying to prosecute a journalist who exposed war crimes, I think they could actually win that fight. I think the public pressure the heat would be too much, that Joe Biden would really look like a fucking asshole if he continued this prosecution. But the fact that they aren't saying anything, and it's not what all the work we're doing isn't getting enough pressure to actually to force Joe Biden to force him into a corner. If these elected progressives actually did anything, they could actually get the results that we want, and they could shame Joe Biden just enough that he would be like, all right, fuck it, we can't do this because it's too public, it's too brazen now. Well, let's just drop the charges. And so the fact that they're not doing anything is even more inexcusable.
I cannot understand how channels like Majority Report, TYT, David Dole, like Humanist Report, like they treat AOC and like all these other progressives like untouchable. Like, oh, we can't pressure them to do anything. We can't pressure them to talk about Assange. We can't pressure them to try the strategy that Dontel just said. Like we can't do that because we'll be hurting her feelings, or I don't know, like it's gonna ruin her career. Like what? Like we're gonna have her back if she's gonna be standing up for Assange. Like what are you talking about? And the sycophants will also still have her back. So it just makes no sense to me how they do that. And they're going to be coming after all of us. I don't remember which stream it was. I think it was one that I had Charles on for. I don't remember who else was here. But the most recent stimulus bill that gave us nothing, but those like $600, which is pretty much nothing. Part of what was in that bill, from what I remember, don't quote me if I'm wrong, has a part in it that says like we can't, like there's like a streamer thing in there where we can't show anything from the mainstream news, otherwise it's like a felony. Like if we're showing like a clip from the mainstream news, that's directly targeting independent media. So it's gonna keep, the aggression towards us is gonna keep getting worse. They're trying to silence us. They know we're a threat. They like the ratings for mainstream media is going down, and people are tuning into independent media like us because we're exposing them, and people want the truth. They're seeing that mainstream media is not genuine anymore. All they were really tuning into them for is because a lot of them were buying into the fear mongering about Trump. So I mean the demonetization of channels like mine, like Convo Couch, Nico, Graham Elwood, that's just one step. Like imagine by the end of Joe Biden's term, remember, look at who's in his administration, Avril Haines, all these people that have ties to intelligence and big tech, like they are pushing for censorship. And the first thing that they started with was the COVID stuff. That's why they went after channels like The Last American Vagabond. That's why they went after the Conscious Resistance. So yeah, I agree with what Marcus was saying earlier, that this is going to get worse. They're already suppressing videos that talk about Julian Assange. They're the videos that I get the least amount of views in. And I don't think it's because people are not interested. I think it's because the system is doing something with those videos to reduce the views. And like what Tom was also saying, like on Facebook, you can't even like talk about it. Like your family won't even see the post, or they're probably suppressing likes. Either way, they don't want that to get out there.
Well, like Dontel was saying, you know, with, you know, all they like, maybe it's not that we're not getting, you know, the buzz out there. Maybe that the buzz was getting out there, and that's where more of the crackdown. They're like, okay, we already know with this whole forced to vote thing that came up, that was already bothering them, and they know we plan on doing whatever we plan on doing with Assange. However, we plan on making this work out. And they know that that's going to be an outcry across independent left media. And well, not even just left media, because there are plenty of, I guess, third party also libertarians. I don't want to leave them out. But I know that that outcry that would come, they're trying to just start cutting off, shutting all the windows, closing all the doors, so it can minimize the critiques. So what they will do is they will come out with the mainstream media, or even Biden, what he'll do is, well, it was so close and it was a tough decision, and you know, we just had to, you know, they're going to be all heartfelt and all heartbroken, you know, that they had to do it. But the end result is they still did what we all are assuming that they're going to do. And then they're going to have a couple of media people who will come out and say, oh, well, you know, I don't know. That was maybe wrong what they did with Assange. Talk about it for a day or two, let it go away, instead of it going viral through independent media and us bitching about it forever and them having to cover it for much longer.
Yeah. Anyone else want to add on to that? Is Dontel frozen?
Yeah, I'm curious what Tom thinks.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
I was trying to think of a positive, just a hypothetical positive thing that we could do.
I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, no, I know. Is there anyone, maybe not a politician, because obviously it seems all politicians are not open to this. Is there anyone that we could target to try to talk about this? Is there a bigger YouTuber? Is there a TV celebrity? Is there someone that we could try to get to talk about Julian Assange? You know,
I can think
something.
of a former representative who has been kind of making her way around some of the independent media platforms that I feel like it. Granted, they do kind of censor her also, but more people are willing to listen to her than just us, because they just assume, oh, we're just random people who just hopped on the internet, you know, one day. And you know, to a degree, that is somewhat true, but some of these people that they see which hop on these panels, some of us actually do a lot of research and put pride into our work. So we're not just hopping on and making a video for shit's sake.
Right. And so, like, overall, like, what we do going forward about Julian Assange, I mean, it's hard to say where we should go. For me, like, I know it's like none of the politicians, like, they're still trying to ignore him, but I think that's for me right now, that's the best option that we have. If AOC and their 10 million Twitter followers could go out on a tweet storm or do a stage of protest or whatever to pressure Joe Biden, I do think that would be helpful. And if she doesn't do that, it shouldn't just be like, oh, let's just shrug our shoulders and she's not going to do it. Like, I think we should just go balls to the wall and do everything we can to shame her into doing that, because that's the whole reason, like, why they were even elected to begin with. It's because a lot of these fights, yeah, we get it that they're uphill battles and a lot of times they might be losing fights, but at least we have somebody in the room making the argument, making the case for the left position, for the anti-war position. And if you have these people elected, put in these positions, specifically for moments like this when we need somebody to actually buck the establishment, and they're not going to do it, I'm going to fucking rake them over the coals. And sorry for cursing, for getting this down my stream. I want to rake them over the coals and shame them and make it so that it's like they can't ignore this. Because if you're not going to buck the establishment, and this gets to the beef with them to be like overall, if you're not going to buck the establishment, you should not be getting any support from the left. I don't care if you do it and you lose. I don't care if it's a real hard fight and you take some losses. I don't care. But if you're just not going to try at all, then you shouldn't be elected, keep getting elected, and keep getting these donations and people volunteering to keep electing you to do what? So it seems like, yeah, there is a concerted effort. They are putting effort and energy into ignoring Julian Assange, but I don't think I'm not going to let them just get away with that. I do think we should keep the pressure up, and what strategy we should do to get them to talk about it, I don't know. Maybe I think we should just be fucking bombarding them, like people in left new media, independent reporters, like. Anytime you could get a chance to run across them with a video camera and a microphone, ask them, grill them on Julian Assange. And that's why it's like, what the fuck is like TYT doing then? What, like, all these people who do have access to these politicians, like, you have them and you get to talk to them and you get to, nobody else is going to grill them and pressure them to support the left position. But all these people who do have access to them and they're not using that opportunity to like force them to talk about Julian Assange and to force them to support Julian Assange and support the efforts to drop the charges. Like, so then what the fuck are you doing?
They're just comfortable talking about all these problems and then not seeing any of it get fixed. Like they're comfortable with that. Like that's just how they've been settled. Like they don't care if there's any solutions, and if there are, they think that they're gonna run out of things to talk about. But yeah, that's a great point, Dontel. Like there's so many people out there who watch platforms like Jimmy Dore, Jimmy Dore does talk about Assange, who watch Slow News Day, who watch my channel, your channel, Coffee and Nuance, Marcus's channel. There's people, like, take the opportunity. We're all journalists. That's why the saying is, we are all Assange. You have your phone. If you ever are in DC, if you ever get the opportunity, you run into AOC or any of these Congress people, pull out your phone, record them, ask them about Assange and what they're going to do. Say that this is the most important press freedom trial of our lifetime. Why aren't they fighting for it? Call them out on their bullshit if they use like State Department talking points, like, oh, he used classified information, blah, blah. Call them out on that shit. It's like, what? So the New York Times, like, they're the only ones that are allowed to do it? It's complete BS. And Tom, were you were saying that we need somebody like with a big platform who's like a celebrity. I instantly started thinking about Joe Rogan. He needs to have Jimmy Dore or somebody back on again to tell him to talk more about Assange. What do you guys think?
Okay.
Go ahead, Tom.
So, yeah, no, that's great. But I'm saying, could we even let's go micro, like Joe Rogan's, the biggest podcaster in the world. Sure, it'd be great if there's someone could get through to him. Obviously, that would be great. is there someone with 50,000 subs that we could get talking about this? You know, like, is there a, I don't know, some minor celebrity, some rock star, some
Like
model, you
Justin
know,
Jackson just made a
There
YouTube
now
channel.
you're thinking.
yeah, he just launched his channel.
Yeah.
He's obviously going to pass all us in subs by the end of the week,
He
I'm
just
sure.
passed me today.
He gonna pass me tomorrow.
Yeah, he's creeping up on unapologetic. But I think it's good. I was talking to my buddy Brooks from HMO Podcast earlier about how this might open the gate with the sports world, like building a bridge with the political world and the sports world. Like he can have on other football players on his channel. Why doesn't he take the opportunity to like inform them about Assange, like get the word out? The Convo Couch is also talking to him about what are you going to have on your cleats. There was a poll out there like what message you will have. There was like Medicare for all, and homelessness. Free Assange is one of those options, and I voted for that because that's the one that is talked about the least. Medicare for all. There's polls that show the majority of Republicans support that already. I think that the message is out there that we need Medicare for all, but there needs to be more talk about Assange and football being a sport in which a lot of conservatives watch. There's a lot of overlap there, and there will be a lot of agreeing when you talk about freedom of speech and press freedom. Like if he has that on his cleats, imagine what impact that would do.
Right.
Yeah,
But
go ahead.
that's next fall.
Yeah.
You know, it's what's it, February, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, and this is something we don't have to come up with now, but you know, if there were someone
Tom,
that we could target, you know, a model, an Instagram model, a rock
Instagram
star,
model.
like whatever, would it be possible for us to get someone bigger than us to talk about it? I think that's
Real
a good
quick,
challenge.
Marcus, I'm gonna let you go. So something that I've noticed is anybody who doesn't like already who hasn't already been brainwashed into thinking that Julian Assange is some type of mastermind, cynical villain or whatever. Even some people who do think that, once you actually present people with the facts about what happened and why he's being prosecuted, it's very rare that people would still support the prosecution of Julian Assange. So it's like one of those things that I think that the more people know, it's not like, oh, so we're just going to have a debate about it. I think it's just pretty clear cut. Anybody who sees it, like, oh, so they're just trying to prosecute him because he embarrassed the government and he exposed their crimes.
Go ahead, Marcus.
See, my idea is, and I think this helps with what Dontel's talking about, and I think this might be a possible solution for what Tom is asking about. Republicans hate the Clintons, and they're not fond of Obama either. And if we do more emphasis on connecting the two, because Republicans are simple. Now, I know a lot of people on the left are like, they're listening to this, but what I want them to think about is sometimes this is like that movie twist, which you see where they've been enemies all along, and then this other enemy that comes bigger than both, and now they need to bond together to fight off this worst enemy. This is like that point in the movie where we could pull our own 3D or 4D chess. Granted, status-wise, we're technically pawns, but we don't always have to think like a pawn. We can be bishops, we can be knights. And so if we can start molding our message to bring in some of those which normally we wouldn't be able to stand or couldn't find very much agreements on, if we can just focus on that one issue, one singular issue, and leave all the other politics aside, say, okay, we'll deal with Medicare later. You guys want to fight about freedom of speech, Second Amendment, we'll deal with all that later. But we'll just deal on this one issue. And if we started building more movements off of handling each issue individually, then we might be able to actually get some traction, because they can shut us down on independent media. They might even kind of marginalize a celebrity or get to them and start paying them off. But I don't see them being able to do that with all of right-wing media.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, it's just a thought, because Republicans, they're once they've decided that this person, just like the Clintons, once they've decided this person is the enemy, they're not going to just back off of it, and they're not going to be quiet about it. I mean, we saw what just happened in the Capitol. Whether you're in the school of thought, which I know none of us are, that Trump just like gave them the perfect, green light, and he choreographed this whole thing, or you believe that these people were just pissed off and waiting for an opportunity to tear up some shit. And the Capitol literally had all of this information and knew it was coming, but somehow didn't have more police on staff and whatever. But we can go into a whole year-long, inquiry on trying to figure out why you guys couldn't just simply pay attention to the threat assessment that you were getting and deal accordingly. Yeah. Me personally, all it needs is somebody needs to be fired or figured out who didn't do what. It doesn't take a whole lot of, and that's the thing we have to look at with Congress. They keep trying to make the smallest little thing, oh, it needs to be this big panel 9/11 Kennedy style, and we got to just call them out on this stupid bullshit. And think about it. It doesn't even really sound like it makes any fucking sense, but we let them say that over and over. I mean, if we can't get to the politicians, some of you guys are in New York. I know I'm in California. If we're just so happen to be walking around a certain area and one of the newscasters gets off, pop out your phone and start asking them questions.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
I mean, it can work the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys heard it here. You guys are all, like I've said it before on my show, like they don't wait for somebody to like come save you. Like you are the hero. Like you have the ability to do journalism. Like, you have a phone. So do everything you can, with the limited resources that you have to get the truth out there. Take any opportunity that you can. Because as long as one more person can get informed from the thing that you do, then that's enough. It's the domino effect will continue and more people will continue to get informed. Do you guys have time for one more quick topic that I wanted to talk about, which is on censorship?
I mean, we made it this far.
It's related.
We can do it real quick.
Yeah. All right. So I thought this was important. There's a thread here by Matt Stoller, and he is writing about how Facebook just blocked the sharing of news in Australia, and he has an article about it. It's called "Changes to Sharing and Viewing News on Facebook in Australia." Facebook has also banned the entire world from getting Australian news content. Holy shit. This is the Australian Competition Commission's report on how dominant Facebook is, WRT display ads. Focusing on the Facebook Oversight Board is a shiny object when the real question is Facebook engaging in censorship on behalf of advertising money. All those idiotic, corrupt elites who sit on the board. Facebook just censored Australia, an entire country. Facebook is censoring an entire country. This has been a long time coming. The Australian competition chief, Rod Sims, was one of the most forward-thinking antitrust enforcers in the world. Facebook censoring all of Australia shows why Mark Zuckerberg absolutely needs to be arrested for fraud and price fixing. If you don't apply law and order to the powerful, eventually the powerful begin writing the laws and giving the orders. FYI, then he shares Caitlin Johnstone's tweet in which she says, "This is the notification I get when I try to share one of my own Substack articles in Australia, #Auspol. This post can't be shared," is what the notification that she gets says. Absolutely ridiculous. The social media, these giants, are limiting us from sharing information and trying to inform each other. I'll start with you, Tom. What are your thoughts on this?
This is no surprise. And if it's going to cost them money, that's what they're going to do. I don't know who still uses Facebook. I still have an account, so I can, see pictures of that my mom posts and things like that. But I don't think I've logged in over a year. But this is no shock, and this happens on a lot of platforms. It's just this particular example is really obvious, right? The platform that we all have things on does the same thing. I made a video a year and a half ago discussing, I did a fact check on a quote from the president at the time about fine people. And I think it was, May of 2019. And you can search for it right now on Google, the exact title of the video, and it does not exist. But on Bing and on DuckDuckGo, it's the #1 result. So this doesn't shock me that Facebook is doing this in Australia. I know that something similar might happen. Is it in Poland? I think that they might shut down all sharing of news there as well.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. But again, I can't get people off Facebook. I wish I could just tell people, if everyone just quit their Facebook, that, this wouldn't be a thing. But what's it like? The majority of people get their news on that site.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I really got nothing. I mean, it doesn't shock me at all. And
so all right, for me, it kind of gets back to the whole, what are we doing here? What are we trying to accomplish as a society? Because these social media companies, they've created this thing, and when it started, nobody expected that it would turn into the major mean of communication and spreading information. Nobody thought that, but that's what it is now. And knowing that's what it is now, that's how most people get their news and information, stuff like that. I feel like it's a very straightforward dilemma that we're faced with. Do you think that billionaires and millionaires should be allowed to arbitrarily decide what we get to talk about and what information we get to see? If you think yes to that, you're fucking crazy. And if you think no, then we need to obviously do something to rein in the powers that these executives have, because they aren't even trying to hide it anymore. It's just whatever they don't agree with, whatever they don't like, they will not allow on their platforms anymore. So again, are you comfortable with billionaires shaping the majority of discourse in this country? And it's the amount of people who just kind of shrug their shoulders and say it is what it is. It's kind of alarming. Yeah. Because we are in dystopian future territory. That's kind of where we are right now. And I don't think enough people are outraged about this. Me personally, I think a solution to the problem would be I would prefer to nationalize it. I think all utilities should be nationalized, electricity and your water and things like that. I think that social media companies should be nationalized, because so that anybody can get to be a part of the conversation, be a part of the dialogue, and not be arbitrarily just removed from the internet. But even if you don't think we should go as far as nationalizing it, it should not be so easy for them to completely to change, like to have such unilateral control over what people get to see. So whether that means making the algorithms public and making it so that they can't be manipulated, whatever you see is just like how it used to be, like whatever gets posted is in chronological order and that's just how it is, and or whatever it is, like just make it so that they can't manipulate the algorithm for whatever reason. Like there's steps that we can do to make it so it's more free and more open to everybody, and so that it isn't just up to billionaires and millionaires to decide the discourse. There are a lot of steps to in between to handle this problem, but it just seems that most people are just like kind of shrugging their shoulders and like, it is what it is. And even though it keeps getting worse and it keeps getting more extreme, it's like there isn't really a big movement to do anything about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, I guess one thing one of these solutions I will have to leave and talk to the panelists. Sorry, this one I just don't feel comfortable going to this degree because I know how censorship works, and I know that literally even right now they're listening to every single thing that we're saying.
Yep.
So this solution, which I feel like is a very solid one, I'm gonna wait and then we'll talk about it. Plus, some of you guys out there, I think, are probably agents anyway, so gotta watch out for that. Well, Dantel was saying about do we want them shaping, our education, and we got to think about it. Continuing to shape is what I would say, really, because if we go back to Rockefeller and a mix of Carnegie basically funded 90% of our education system, the early startup, and a lot of the people which they put in charge, through donations or whatever, were the people who have kind of given us the education system we've had up until about the 1970s or 80s. And so a lot of, especially my generation or generations older, are shaped with the worldview of a handful of people. And that's the same thing that these people are like, even the information that they were putting out, they're like, no, even that stuff, we need to ratchet down. Anything more than that, we're going to just keep it framed to these confines here. We don't even want you guys to have conversations, because we were talking about, what was that, Clubhouse earlier?
Mm-hmm.
Clubhouse is just a platform where you get on and just have conversations. And so they're even trying to shut down you having the ability to have conversations with people about whatever you want to have a conversation. I mean, and to them, that doesn't even sound like there's anything wrong with it, that they would say that in a statement, the New York Times or New York Post, I get them mixed up. But with this, and we're talking about, I guess I was a little bit shocked that it happened, as in like right now, but I wasn't shocked that Australia would get banned. A lot of their media actually is conservative. One of their biggest outlets, Sky News, which was started by the Murdoch family, is kind of the equivalent of Fox News over there. So if you could start shutting down conservatives in other countries and then shut down whole countries, everybody it's kind of like a filler. Okay, we'll test it on this smaller nation. Yeah, they're going to bitch and moan, but let's see who really complains. Nobody really complains, then we can move this on to more nations. I mean, take, for instance, North Korea's, because North Korea is already demonized and all the sanctions, it's easy to do that to North Korea already. I would say watch out for a couple of publications and a couple of nations who that might happen to them also. I would say China and definitely Russia. We already see that things are happening in Poland right now. So it'll get to a matter of time before those nations no content from them either. So if you guys are thinking about what I'm saying, that's RT, possibly being taken out. I also see a possibility where Al Jazeera might be also banned. I see, and then down the road after all that,
Press TV, Iranian news.
oh yes, any nation that is not part of the so-called first world nations, though anybody else outside of that or who's going to be speaking counter to that narrative, because if they can start doing it on that level, then it's going to start cracking all the way down. And so what we have to do is where they go high tech, maybe go a little low tech. Just whatever they're trying to do, figure out how to do something different and always keep evolving, because they're not going to stop.
And one thing that I want to say about just real quick is that what do you think billionaires are going to do if they have, and this is true for social media, but just in general, what do you think they're going to do if you grant them the unilateral ability to control the flow of information? Of course, they're going to use it to further their own agenda. Like, something that I want people to understand is there's always this class 4 going on, and they're aware of it, and they, at every opportunity, they're trying to further their agenda. So you give them the control of the flow of information, they're going to do that, use that entirely to propagate what they want people to, how they want people to view the world, and they're going to suppress any information that might lead to or assist in a political revolution where we address wealth inequality, and they might lose some of the wealth and the power that they do have. So it should be a no-brainer that if you give them this power, that they're not just going to use it, they're not going to be like this benevolent force that's only going to like use it for good or use it in a way that benefits society. They're going to use it in a way that benefits them. And if you can't tell, all the shit that benefits them is usually bad for everybody else. So I hope people get that under like that point of view in just the free flow of information. Like, it has to be free, or else the people who control it are going to manipulate it for their agenda.
Yeah, and look at all the incremental steps that they're already taking by labeling, like on Twitter and Facebook, like, the soapbox is Russian affiliated news. RT is paid in part or in whole by the Russian government. Like, you see that on YouTube, you see that on Twitter. Press TV, it's Iranian news. They're already taking incremental steps. The next steps are going to be, we can't show you this news at all, right? It's and there's nobody that's standing up for that in Congress. I could be mistaken. Maybe people like Matt Gaetz or Thomas Massey are, but nobody's standing up for this. And real quick, before we close off here, there is one thing that I forgot to say during the discussion about Assange, and I'm glad that Tom is here because he had a video about Navalny. But look at the hypocrisy of how all these politicians and how they're outraged about what's happening to Navalny, the guy who said Muslims are like cockroaches and they should be banned to like the Caucasus Mountain. Like, this guy is disgusting. Like, they're outraged about him and how he needs to replace Putin. But they're completely silent on Assange. And Richard Medhurst had an excellent video about that. But just real quick, before we close off here, what are your thoughts on that, Tom?
Tom.
Yeah, and then Dontel.
No, it is very, very true about him. Definitely, if he were here in the U.S., he would get the Alex Jones, Milo treatment. He would have no Twitter. He would have no YouTube. He would be banished from all social media based on what he's done. So, yeah, but this doesn't surprise us because, that's what they do.
And it just shows that that like they're just tools to the Democratic Party. Because if they really cared about political prisoners, if they really cared about people being locked up for free speech, Julian Assange is the most perfect example or the most sympathetic character you can find. But they don't care about the principle. It's only they will only do it because that's the narrative that the Democratic Party is trying to push. They're incredibly anti-Russia and anti-Russian government. So they have this case with Alexei Navalny, and even though he's a despicable figure and he has odious beliefs and he's a terrible neoliberal, racist neoliberal, they will jump to his defense because that's what the Democratic Party allows. And so it's so
He'll be back. Yeah.
They might be picking on him.
Yeah, they might be picking on him. They're tuning in. They're like, this guy's
But,
making
like-
so many good points.
yeah, you could be against political prisoners, but like to focus on him and act like this is the political prisoner we all need to sing the praises of and leap to the fence. Like, no, you can if you have this general position for all political prisoners, have at it. But the fact that they're selectively doing it for Navalny and silent on Julian Assange, it's clear that they don't care about the principle. It's just this is convenient for the narrative, the hawkish narrative the Democratic Party is pushing about Russia.
Yeah, let's give our final words here because we're
Can I give a
yeah. Just
quick
after
comment.
you finish, Marcus, just let people know like where they can find you and all that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna say the thing which caught me the most off guard about that statement was not the stupidity of it. And follow with me for a moment. He is from that area, right? Poland, right? You know, that those people in that area originate from the Caucasus Mountain. Now you're telling Muslims to go back to where you came from. That
Right.
I mean, that doesn't. That's just the logic is so off and backwards because. Yeah, maybe you should tell them to go south instead of, north. I don't know.
The wrong way, right? Yeah.
wrong geography there.
Yeah.
But yes, I am Marcus Cage. My channels, and I say just write down Marcus Cage. Remember Marcus Cage, and that will help you find my channels. The Political Matrix. Is my platform, which is on Saturday nights. On Sundays, I have What We've Been Thinking with Marcus Cage. And then I have my new channel where I'm just starting out uploading videos, and it's called Hebrew Apologetics with Marcus Cage. Yes, and just follow me on Twitter if you're not already.
Yeah, Marcus is awesome. I love having him on, man. He brings up a lot of great points, a lot of knowledge, brings up a lot of history. It's a great addition always to the panel. And
Thank you.
Tom Coffee, where can people find you and Coffee and Nuance?
Yeah, so thanks. This was actually cool. This is my first stream ever, and I'm pretty happy with it. Right.
I'm glad you liked it.
But yeah, my name's Tom Coffee. I'm on all social medias at Coffee and Nuance. All the alt tech video platforms as well. Everything is mirrored on Odyssey and Library and BitChute and all that good stuff. Coffee and Nuance, thanks for being such a great audience. I appreciate it. And thanks to the panel for a great discussion. This was awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Now the amazing Dontel of Unapologetic.
So my name is Dontel Hines, host of Unapologetic. And you can find me on youtube.com/unapologetic, on Twitter at unapologetic YT. In the about page of my YouTube channel, I have the links to Patreon, PayPal, all those different things. And I'm very grateful that you had me on your panel. It was a great discussion, and looking forward to being on your next panel.
All right, there you guys have it. And I am Franco, host of Frank Analysis. You can find me on Odyssey. You can find me on Rockfin. And I am at B43Franco on Twitter. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I love you guys for tuning in. You guys have been helping me out so much. I feel very united with you guys who are, helping me out during these times when I've been demonetized. You guys showed a lot of support, and just know that I really appreciate that, man. You guys keep my head up. And yeah, thank you guys. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, subscribe to this channel if you've not yet subscribed to this channel, and of course subscribe to everybody who's here on this panel, to their channels. And take care, everybody. Don't forget to stay informed and stay conscious.